Right, guys, this one's political. Don't want to hear it? Turn off now. I said I wouldn't get political on my channel, but I've just thought I'm going to do this because things that I'm seeing now are starting to make me think more and worry more. As a prepper, nothing to do with any sort of political loyalties. I have friends from the left and the right of centre. I have friends that are far left and far right. I have friends from all walks of life. We can disagree, we can debate, and we can still have a drink together afterwards and socialise.
It is the British way.
That's not a problem. If you're deeply, deeply offended by things like this, please just tune out. So I've been reading multiple articles about the Labour Party, and obviously half of my family are Labour supporters traditionally. They're from the northeast, always been a red stronghold sort of thing. So they've always kind of had that with them. But even them now, a percentage of them are looking at this thinking, what the hell is going on?
This is madness!
Because it's no longer just slightly left of centre. It's changes that the whole country's baffled at. The fuel allowance, the winter fuel allowance, I've done a video on that already, but that just baffled me, that whole decision. There is savings to be made in multiple areas, yet we've cut off a vital support for our pensioners without notice, without enough notice for them to be ready for that change in income. We've released prisoners, some of which are violent offenders, thousands of them, without tags, without any sort of warning to the victims. So it's just happening day by day. And then they've done these two horrible things as far as I'm concerned. And then we get this expenses scandal, not expenses, but donation scandal, sorry. Clothes being donated to them. I mean, they look like the clothes are from the charity shop anyway. Some of the guys on the front row, they just look like a bag of spanners, some of them. But thousands and thousands of pounds worth of donations. It's just absolutely reeking, this government currently, of they don't care. They really don't care. And that's how it's starting to feel. And it's not just to me. It's not just to right-wing supporters or other party supporters. Even people who have voted Labour, celebrities even, are coming out now going, what's going on? And are regretting that vote in the first place. So let's have a look at the party first. Labour is a democratic socialist party. Their policy development process is designed to involve members, local parties, trade unions, socialist societies, elected representatives, as well as the wider community. One to note in there, of course, is the trade unions, because they've given this massive pay rise to the train drivers, who, I'm sorry, are already on a considerably larger wage than a majority of the population, and they are certainly on more money currently than what our pensioners are receiving, who have just had the fuel allowance cut. So you've took it away from the vulnerable and you give it to the less needy. Does that sound like the traditions of the Labour Party of old? But let's look at the name. It's a democratic socialist party. What's a democratic socialist? A democratic socialist is left-wing set of political philosophies that supports political democracy and some form of socially owned economy. So, nationalising the rail system, for example, nationalising different, like British Gas, that could be considered as part of it. However, if you look at socialism and the definition in the Marxist theory, now a lot of these far left people, oh, Karl Marx is the be all and end all, oh, genius, blah, blah, blah. The definition of socialism from that aspect is a transitional social state between the overthrow of capitalism and the realization of communism. Socialism is the first stage of the worldwide transition to communism. From the horse's mouth himself. Now, I don't think specifically the Labour Party is a communist party. I don't think Keir Starmer is necessarily a communist. You're lying! I may be wrong. But what he's starting to look like is a tyrannical leader. And what makes me say this? Like anything these days, you can find a guide online to do what you want. I need to hang a shelf. Here's a step-by-step guide. What I found was 7 steps to becoming a dictator.
Is what made my father and grandfather so successful.
Yes, no, it's not my ambition. I just thought it was an interesting article when I found it. I will link it below. It's from Psychology Today. Step 1. Expand your power through nepotism and corruption. This is not a tactic adopted in third world countries. Scandals like Bridgegate, Careergate, Monaco-gate, and Watergate demonstrate that the powerful will always find ways to abuse their privileges. Be warned though, you may eventually be rumbled, so corruption tends to only work short term. What are we seeing right now? What is the corruption we're seeing with the donations coming in and stuff like that? And, you know, you might wipe off the donations, no problem. What's the corruptions of a trade union dictating this £10,000 rise for the train drivers and then taking the winter fuel allowance? Sounds like step 1's already been covered. Number 2, instigate a monopoly on the use of force to curb public protest. Dictators cannot survive long without dismantling the people and buttering up the military. Former dictators such as Perez, Musharraf of Pakistan, Mobutu Sese of the Congo, and Idi Amin of Uganda were high-ranked army officers who co-opted the military into order to overthrow the democracies. Now, obviously, he's not done that at the moment. I'm not sure many of the military leaders would follow him if they said. But when it comes to the police force, then they do have this 2-tier system that we've all seen everywhere, bandied around all social media. 2-tier Kia. All right. And we've seen how much they police and they go after a right-wing protest versus what they do for a left-wing protest. Number 2, kind of there, not quite. Number 3 on the list might be a decent thing for us regular people, because this is curry favour by providing public goods efficiently and generously. Now, he's not been generous to us yet, but, you know, we've still got the budget to come out yet to see how much he tries to curry favour after the amount of stuff they've done to depopularize themselves. So they've got to do something right to make it look like they're amazing and wonderful. So expect some sort of frivolous giveaway in the next budget to curry favour. And then number 3 will be checked off. Number 4 is get rid of your political enemies. And we all know that the non-biased mainstream media has already tried to assassinate the Reform Party, and even to the point of hiring actors to disparage them. So that could be a step in that direction. Number 5 is an interesting one. Create and defeat a common enemy. Now, for any failing politician, a victory on a war front or a victory on, I don't know, defeating some sort of pandemic is always going to stand you in good stead with the people. But if it's something you've created in the first place, Imagine if you've let Storm Shadow missiles be used to attack a major power that's going to escalate World War III. Something ridiculous like that. I'm just pulling a theory out of nowhere. That could then create something that is a common enemy. And if you go to war as part of that with NATO, guess what? You become dear leader. Number 6 is accumulate power by manipulating the hearts and minds of your citizens. Now, I think a lot of us have seen straight through this one, but there is still a lot of delusional, left-sided people who think he's the best thing since sliced bread, even though his own party is on the verge of revolting against him. So he might have won the hearts and minds of a gullible few, but of the nation, I think we're covered. We're safe with that one. Number 7, create an ideology to justify an exalted position. Well, he's not appointed himself as overlord yet, but it could be coming. But that's 7 steps to becoming a dictator. And it's worrying if you're checking off even 1 or 2 of them boxes. Let's take a closer look at some of the U-turns and lies and promises that have been broken so far in such a short time. So the first one is refusing to end the 2-child limit. Keir Starmer himself, there is a tweet that you can still find on his account to this day that says we must scrap the inhuman work capability assessments and private provision of disability assessments, scrap punitive sanctions, 2-child limit and benefits cap. This is obviously when he's not in power, all these things can be scrapped very easily. But on the 16th of July, Starmer told the BBC that it was not changing the Tory policy regarding the 2-child limit. And this had sparked outrage amongst campaigners in his own party. Labour MPs tweeting things like the 2-child limit is unspeakably cruel policy inflicting destitution and misery on children and parents. It is absolutely should be abolished. That was from Labour MP Zara Sultana. Earning his first nickname, Keir Starmer, Sir Kid Starver. Scrapping tuition fees. Now, all you lefty students who think the Labour Party is wonderful, they promised in manifestos in 2017 and 2019 to scrap tuition fees. But guess what? It doesn't work. It's not possible. They don't have the money. It's all the Tory party's fault for this black hole of money, I'm sure.
Wow! The land of make-believe!
This pledge was then scrapped out of the manifestos and is just no longer on the table. During Keir Starmer's campaign, he had a point of social justice to abolish universal credit and end the Tories' cruel sanctions regime, set a national goal for well-being to make health as important as GDP, invest in services that help shift a preventative approach, stand up for universal services and defend our NHS, support the abolition of tuition fees and invest in lifelong learning. That was in his own campaign. And we can see that most of that looks set to be abandoned now. His number one campaign promise was to increase the income tax for the top 5% of earners and reverse Tory cuts in corporation tax. And it was the first sentence of his pledge. But he's hinted at a move away from that now. Is that because now him and his fellow MPs are now in a higher percentage of earners? Possibly. Labour's conference in 2022, Starmer promised to create a nationalised energy company called Great British Energy with the first year of the Labour government. In March, the Shadow Chancellor Rachel Reeves confirmed the policy had been scrapped, with only rail in line for nationalisation under the Labour government. One of his other pledges was to defend free movement as we leave the EU. However, he decided to abandon this, telling the Mail on Sunday in November 2022, a Swiss deal simply wouldn't work for Britain. We'll have a stronger trading relationship and will reduce red tape for British business, but freedom of movement is a red line for me. He was going back on promises before he was even in power. And the list goes on. This video would be way too long to publish if I went into every single one, but lots of promises have turned around. He himself has been quoted and seen in the Houses of Parliament when he was the leader of the opposition saying,
year, the Prime Minister was apparently drawing up plans to remove the winter fuel allowance from pensioners. So will he now rule out taking pensioners' winter fuel payments off them to help fund his £46 billion black hole?
That is ridiculous U-turn on that one. So it's just showing you, isn't it? But what's next for Mr. Starmer? There's talks and rumours of his own front bench starting to rebel and revolt against him. Although I don't think they'd do a vote of no confidence against him as leader at this stage anyway. I think that he's going to find it harder and harder to put votes through, such as the fuel allowance cut, as more and more Labour MPs will choose to abstain from the voting. So, in your journey to becoming a complete tyrant and an overlord of the UK, what do you need to do? Well, first off, how do you control a nation? You disarm them and you remove their voice. Because there's not going to be no rebellion or upheaval if you do them two things. It's got to be a dictator's simple, easy 101 instructions. We've seen this starting already with the rightly angry people coming out, regular people coming out to protest, the majority of which were peaceful protests coming out regarding the terrible incidents that happened in Southport and other such things around the country. But not only were people arrested at these protests, but before and after the fact, created a whole new section of policing that is going through your tweets, your posts, your YouTube videos. Hi guys, yes, it's me. Please don't arrest me. And examples of this are now starting to come up even more so over the media. Maya Tusi of 2C TV recently published a video that showed one of the ladies that was arrested for a tweet. The tweet that she put on wasn't even her original tweet. She'd got some intelligence from somewhere, not a credible source, to say, so this is the person that did the attack. She retweeted that with an actual comment saying, if this is true, then this is disgusting, or whatever she said. But she quoted is if this is true. So it wasn't saying it was, but still arrested, thrown in prison, all this lot. Went through a complete ordeal. Go and check out 2C TV for that one, and you can see what she went through. Tyler Kay arrested for 38 months of posting content that incited hatred. Jordan Parler, 20 months in prison. 3 men from Cumbria in prison. 55-year-old woman imprisoned for stirring up racial hatred. This is just posts online on social media. A platform you should have free speech. And we're trying to silence that free speech. And in trying to silence it, what you're going to do, you're just going to drive it underground. But if we don't feel we have the freedom to even say what's on our mind, if it's going to offend every person going, I'm not saying you should advocate posting and inciting violence in any way. Not at all. And I'm not saying you should have any sort of racial hatred posts in any way. Not at all. But to be arrested for it is another story. People like this need talking to, need debating with. You know, most of the time when it's a post like that, they make themselves look like idiots anyway. Usually the comments will sort them right out. But to arrest them, and in the same roll of the dice, while you're arresting these terrible people who are tweeting and posting things, you are releasing hardened criminals. You are releasing somebody who broke his partner's jaw in a domestic violence case. There is an absolute ridiculous priority when it comes to that kind of imprisoning, when we've got shortage of space in prisons. Don't worry about the over 10,000 non-UK nationals that we're housing in prison and paying for, that we could quite easily fill out some paperwork, stick on a flight and deport them, which would be well within our rights to do. No, don't worry about that. Let's just release some people back out into the community. So that takes care of the silencing you, making many people too scared to even post something or to comment or to like or to retweet something after hearing these horror stories of sentences. But you shouldn't be silenced. You have a voice. Use it. And of course, disarming the nation. Every government in power over the last X amount of years has been doing this to the UK. We had handgun bans due to a tragic incident in Dunblane, which was a tragic incident, but then you ban them nationwide. One incident and you ban that across the entire country. We're now going on to zombie knives. Most knife crime is done with kitchen knives or machetes or garden tools. So your banning of zombie knives is a publicity stunt. But again, taking away something that is, some people just collect for the beauty of it. Crossbows, we expect to be the next one. We already know how hard it is to get a license for any sort of firearms in this country. You can, but with great difficulty. They are slowly but surely disarming the nation. If we ever do have to rise up to stop tyranny, it'll be with sticks and stones. And people are so obfuscated by the law these days. They don't know what is a civil matter, what is a legal matter, and it takes experts to figure these things out sometimes. We do not have free speech in this country. We do not have a constitutional right to free speech. Technically, it's protected under the Human Rights Act, but then on 3 other acts, it's prohibited in certain areas. So it contradicts itself on so many levels. So what you think you may have the right to, you actually may not, depending on X, Y, and Z condition. Genuinely, we do need reform in this country. That's not a political party post, that is just in general. We need some sort of constitutional rights. We need to know where we stand with things like free speech. With the right to bear, I was going to say arms, but we can't. With the right to bear catapults, you know, whatever we can. But we need this stuff down in black and white without the trickery of the legal system in this country. Read up on the zombie blades. We've got some great people who are friends with the channel who have done videos on it, like Scottish Prepper 73 has recently done one, and they will explain it in a basic way that you can understand. But have a look at the actual rules, read them, and they just seem to try to overcomplicate these things. And there's never a justification with it. They haven't said why specifically these points are prohibited. For what reason? It cannot have 2 points. 1 point can kill. What difference does 2 points make? And then the argument might be it's to do with street cred and intimidation. That is irrelevant. It really is. Have a look at the violence that's going on in the streets that you see the CCTV footage of. Half the time, it's machetes, it's kitchen knives, it's small little folding knives. We cannot become a nation of purified food because we can't even have butter knives and kitchen knives to cut everything up. When will the madness end? I tell you one statistic, we must be making more room for people in this country because a lot of people I know are now considering emigrating. And that's scary. You're driving people patriotic people who love this country, who want to love this country, away by alienating them from their own culture. My advice to you, Mr. Starmer, is rename your political party, because you are not the Labour Party of old. You are not for the working man. And what you represent, I have no idea. But it's starting to concern me, and it's starting to make me prep even more.
Shout out his name.
So, how do we prep for 1984? How do we prep for a tyrannical government? I mean, it depends how extreme it gets, right? We are already the most watched nation. There is so much CCTV and cameras everywhere you look in this country. We are already watched by Big Brother. Just not as in your face as a screen in your bedroom telling you how to touch your toes correctly. We've not quite got there yet, but it's not as sci-fi as it once was. Personally, for me, prepping for this could only be to the extreme of going off grid. That would be the one way to completely start to prep for something like this. But if you are an everyday guy like me, working your 9 till 5, supporting your family and hoping none of this stuff happens while trying to live a regular life, the best way you can prep, I think, at the moment is being frugal. Saving money in the form of cash or assets, precious metals, things like this. There's loads of different videos across YouTube on prepping for wealth preservation. Now, not everyone can afford to go and buy bars of gold and silver. However, just making sure you have that fully stocked prepper pantry, you get things at today's prices, because none of the supermarkets, despite advertising campaigns, are going to drop their prices in the future. You get rollback prices every so often on certain products. When you see them, grab them, because they only roll them back, so when they put them back up again, they can go even higher. We can see the price differences and the changes in the space of a year. So don't think I'm going to wait for them prices to go down again before I buy. They're not going to. Stock up now on what you can. As the control starts to grip us tighter in that 1984 style, them commodities that you have now and save up and hold on to, whether it be a can of beans or a bar of gold, will be worth so much more in years to come. A scary post I did see on one of the news outlets was a Labour candidate saying, "We want 25 years of Labour." That is, to me, definitely fuel to emigrate. That would be my ultimate prep, getting rid of all my preps, moving to another country and starting prepping again from there. Save what you can. Try and combat that cost of living. I've just had my letter with my energy price increases. I'm sure you'll have the same soon. It's around 10% and they're already starting to go up now. So I'm looking more and more into off-grid solutions, even for an on-grid house. I'm rigging up a solar lighting system so I can have lights on that are only charged off the solar power inside the house, just for that little bit of saving of electricity. But there's also all sorts of money saving techniques that you can do. There's websites galore based on that. I suppose on top of your regular preps and all of this, the main thing to do is to keep your eyes open. Stay aware. Don't look at the immediate article they're pushing, things like this donation scandal. Even though that's not great for Labour, it's definitely took people's minds off the fuel allowance cut and the release of the prisoners. So watch out for that obfuscation and start looking for them telltale signs that could be coming. Thanks for being here, guys. Thanks for listening to my little rant or little assessment of the current situation, and hopefully, as always, I'm wrong, and hopefully everything works out wonderfully. If not, stay prepared, stay vigilant, stay alert. Thanks for watching. See you all in the next video. Bye.
Yeah.